Welcome to Story Sale English. I am very glad you are here today. Some stories are made to entertain us. Some stories are made to inspire us. But some stories are different. They are made to warn us. Today's story is one of those stories. It begins with adventure. A group of travelers, a line of off-road vehicles, a desert road far from the city, and a place so dangerous that people gave it a terrifying name, the Sea of Death. At first it looked like freedom. No traffic, no buildings, no noise. Only the endless sky, the empty land, and the dream of crossing one of the most mysterious deserts in China. But the deeper they drove, the more the adventure changed. Excitement became silence. Confidence became fear. And one small mistake after another began to close the door behind them. This story is inspired by true events. Names, conversations, and some details have been changed for storytelling. This is not a documentary. It is a warning. Day 1 noon. At first, it looked like the perfect adventure. A convoy of off-road vehicles left the edge of civilization and entered the desert. There were many cars, there were many people, there was excitement in the air. They drove from the direction of Dunhuang and entered the vast, empty land near Lop Nur. To some, it was a dream. To others, it was a forbidden land. But to those who truly understood it, Lop Nur was never just a desert. It was a test of machines, judgment, pride, and sometimes survival. The locals had another name for it, the Sea of Death. There was no ocean there. No water, no waves, no boats, only salt, sand, heat, wind, and silence. A silence so deep that even a strong person could begin to hear fear inside the heart. The travelers believed they were prepared. They believed the cars were strong enough. They believed the guide knew the way. But the desert does not care what people believe. The journey began with excitement. Behind them were roads, towns, gas stations, phone signals, restaurants, and hospitals. Ahead of them was nothing. At first, that nothing felt beautiful. The sky was enormous. The land was endless. The tires crushed dry earth beneath them. Dust rose behind the convoy like smoke from a battlefield. Inside one of the cars sat 4 people. Chen, the driver, loved off-road adventure. To him, Lop Nur was not just a destination. It was proof that he was brave enough and that his vehicle was powerful enough. Beside him was Lin, his friend, holding a camera. She wanted to record the road, the sand, the sunrise, and the feeling of entering one of the most dangerous places in the country. In the back sat Master Zhao, the guide. He was quiet. Next to him was Qiang, a mechanic who knew engines, fuel lines, and tires. But even a good mechanic has limits. In Lop Nur, a broken machine is not just an inconvenience. It can become a death sentence. That first day, everything seemed to go well. The cars moved in a line, one after another. The radios worked. The engines sounded healthy. The group stopped often to take pictures. Someone laughed over the radio and said it felt like Mars. Chen smiled. He felt alive. In the city, life was meetings, traffic, bills, messages, and small worries that repeated every day. Here, there was only distance. For a moment, distance felt like freedom. Lin turned her camera toward him and asked him to say something. Chen looked into the lens and said that if everything went well, this would be the greatest trip of his life. Then he laughed and said that if something went wrong, at least they would have a story. Master Zhao heard him from the back seat. He did not laugh. He only looked out the window and said quietly, "Some stories should never happen." Outside, the desert stretched forward like it had no end. That night the group reached a planned camping area. Tents were built. Food was cooked. People relaxed under the desert sky. Some people drank. Some people talked. Some people celebrated the beginning of the journey. The night seemed peaceful. The stars were bright. The desert looked beautiful, but beauty can be dangerous when people mistake it for safety. In a place like Lop Nur, danger does not always arrive with a roar. Sometimes it waits quietly. Day 2 morning. The next morning the mood began to change. The ground became harder to read. Some places looked solid, but the tires sank. Some places looked flat, but the vehicles shook violently. Some tracks disappeared in the wind. Some directions looked right until they were not. The sun rose higher. The heat became more aggressive. It was not the kind of heat people complain about in a city. It was dangerous heat, the kind that dries the mouth before a person realizes they are thirsty, the kind that turns metal into fire, the kind that makes every decision slower. The convoy stopped again and again. One vehicle got stuck, then another. People got out with shovels, they pushed, they pulled, they lowered tire pressure. At first they joked, by noon nobody joked. Water bottles were opened more often, faces became red, Lin filmed less. Chen checked the fuel gauge, then he checked it again. Fuel was no longer a number. Fuel was time, fuel was distance, fuel was survival. Day 2 late afternoon. By late afternoon, the convoy could no longer keep the original plan. Too many vehicles had been delayed. Too many problems had appeared. The group stopped and set up camp earlier than planned. They had not reached the place they were supposed to reach. That was the first serious warning, but many people still believed the problems could be solved. The guide offered a plan. He would go with another person to bring back fuel that had been placed near another location. People waited. The sun went down. The desert became darker. When the guide returned with fuel, hope came back for a brief moment. Some vehicles were tested. The engines seemed better. People felt relieved. They ate. They talked. Some even celebrated. The trouble seemed to be under control. But it was not. The fuel they brought back was not enough for everyone. More fuel, more water, and more help had to be requested. In the desert, every extra request means more delay, and delay is dangerous. Day 3 before dawn. Before dawn, a supply vehicle arrived with more fuel. There was gasoline, there was diesel, there was hope. But in a crisis, even hope can become dangerous if people are tired, hot, and rushing. The containers looked similar. The group was under pressure. Everyone wanted to solve the problem quickly. After sunrise, the convoy continued, but after only about an hour, the problems returned. 2 powerful trucks stalled again. Another vehicle kept getting stuck. The trip no longer felt like an adventure. It felt like heavy work under a sun that did not forgive. Then came the mistake that changed everything. A container of fuel was poured into one of the powerful trucks, but it was the wrong fuel. Diesel went into a gasoline vehicle. People realized it too late. They tried to drain the mixed fuel. They tried to clean the system. But while trying to solve one problem, another appeared. A fuel line was damaged. Now the vehicle could no longer continue. The machine was finished. The trip had reached a breaking point. Day 3, around 2 p.m. The driver and one woman in that vehicle no longer wanted to continue. They wanted out. They wanted to leave the desert. They wanted to go back to safety. Their wish was understandable. They were tired. They were hot. The vehicle had failed. The dream had changed into fear. The guide decided to drive them out in his pickup truck. A mechanic would go with them. The plan sounded simple. The guide would take them out. Then he would return. Then he would catch up with the main convoy. It sounded reasonable, but in Lop Nur, reasonable plans can become deadly when one detail goes wrong. The convoy split. One group continued deeper into the desert. The other group turned away, trying to leave. In the pickup were 4 people: the guide, 2 travelers, and the mechanic. They believed they were heading toward safety. They believed it would only take a few hours. They believed the guide knew the way. But in the desert, soon is a dangerous word. For the 4 people in the pickup, the first part of the return probably still felt manageable. They had a vehicle. They had a direction. They had a plan, but the desert was not finished with them. Somewhere on the way out, the pickup truck got stuck. Not broken, stuck. In a city, a stuck vehicle is a problem. In Lop Nur, a stuck vehicle can become a trap. They tried to free it. They dug around the wheels. They worked under the heat. They used strength. They used hope, but the truck did not move. The desert held it in place. At that moment, the vehicle was still their best shelter. It had shade. It had fuel. It could be seen more easily than people walking alone. But it did not have enough drinking water, and there was no reliable way to contact the outside world. A decision had to be made. Stay with the truck or walk. Back with the main convoy, people began to worry. The guide had not returned as promised. Some members tried to call him. No answer. They tried again, still no answer. But they were tired. They had been fighting the desert all day. They wanted to believe the guide was experienced. They wanted to believe he could handle it. So they rested. That was another small moment in a chain of small moments. Not evil, not careless on purpose, just human. Tired people making uncertain decisions in an unforgiving place. The sun rose again. The main convoy continued struggling. They still had fuel problems. They still had route problems. They still had no clear information from the guide. But they kept moving, because stopping in the desert also had risks. For the 4 people in the pickup, the situation was becoming worse. If they stayed near the truck, they had shelter but not enough water. If they walked, they might find help, but walking would burn their strength and water even faster. Both choices were dangerous. That is the cruel heart of survival. It does not offer a good choice, only 2 bad ones. The guide may have believed there was a safer place not too far away. A road, an exit, a place where there might be people. Not close, but possible. And sometimes possible is enough to make people move. By another afternoon, the main convoy was still dealing with fuel. One vehicle's fuel had nearly run out. A second search for fuel began. More delays, more uncertainty, more heat, more fear. People waited through another long day. Some began to understand that the journey had already failed. It was no longer about adventure. It was about getting out. It was about survival. But the 4 people in the pickup were now separated from the main group. Separation is one of the most dangerous things in a wild place. Once separated, every problem becomes larger. A missed call becomes fear. A broken plan becomes a search. A wrong assumption becomes tragedy. Day 5 morning. The danger became clear when part of the convoy discovered another vehicle that had also been trying to leave. The people inside had survived by staying with their car. They had suffered. They had waited. They had used what they had. At one point, they even used a drone to find another vehicle about 10 kilometers away. They reached water from that vehicle and survived long enough to be found. Their survival showed something painful. In the desert, staying with a vehicle can sometimes be the difference between life and death. But by then, the 4 people from the pickup were still missing. The main convoy reached the vehicle that had been left behind earlier. They heard the story. They understood that the guide had said he would return quickly, but 2 days had passed. No return. No message. No clear sign. This was no longer a delay. This was an emergency. When the main convoy finally left the desert and reached a place with signal, they called the police. Outside the desert, concern turned into action. Search teams began moving. People tried to reconstruct the route. Where had the pickup gone? Where had it stopped? Where would the guide have tried to walk? Where could the missing people be? In a city, rescue is measured in minutes. In Lop Nur, rescue is measured against heat, fuel, terrain, distance, and luck. And luck was running out. Day 6 search teams enter. Search teams entered the area. They looked for tire tracks. They looked for signs of movement. They looked for metal in the sunlight. They looked for anything that did not belong to the desert. But Lop Nur does not give up its secrets easily. Wind covers tracks. Heat bends vision. Distance turns everything into a question. A dark spot could be a rock. A line could be a shadow. A shape could be nothing. Or it could be the thing everyone is looking for. Rescuers found the pickup. They also found 3 people. They had no signs of life. One person was still missing. The truth was now almost unbearable. The desert had not attacked them. It had simply waited. It waited while they became tired. It waited while their water disappeared. It waited while confidence turned into fear. It waited while every small mistake joined the next one. That is how people are defeated in wild places. Not all at once, slowly, a little thirst, a little delay, a little wrong turn, a little pride. A little hope placed in the wrong thing. Then suddenly the distance back is too far, and the distance forward is unknown. Somewhere before the end, Chen must have understood the truth. The trip was not a test of bravery anymore. It was a lesson in limits. He wanted to say something strong, something hopeful, but words felt useless. Finally, he said only, "I am sorry." No one answered. Because the desert had already answered. This is where the story becomes quiet, because not every ending should be described loudly. Day 8 late morning. The last missing person was still out there. Another search began. A rescue team entered the area again. They carried supplies. They carried satellite phones. They carried tools. They carried the last hope of finding him. Not long after entering the area, they found him. He was the guide. He had not made it out. The 4 people who entered the desert together had all died. Behind every headline were families. Behind every number were names. Behind every accident were ordinary people who had once made plans, sent messages, smiled for photos, and believed they would come home. The desert remained unchanged. The same sun rose the next morning. The same wind moved across the salt and sand. The same silence covered the land. Lop Nur did not explain. It did not forgive. It did not remember. That is why humans must remember. So what is the lesson? It is not that adventure is wrong. Adventure can be powerful. It can teach courage. It can reveal beauty. It can remind people that the world is larger than their daily lives. But adventure without respect is not courage. It is arrogance. A forbidden route is not a challenge. It is a warning. A dangerous desert is not a background for a video. It is a force older and stronger than any machine. Nature does not care how expensive your vehicle is. It does not care how many followers you have. It does not care how brave you feel at the beginning. It asks only one question. Are you prepared to survive the truth of this place? Prepared with permission. Prepared with water. Prepared with fuel. Prepared with communication. Prepared with emergency plans. Prepared with tools. Prepared with a real rescue plan. Prepared to turn back. Because sometimes the bravest decision is not to keep going. Sometimes the bravest decision is to stop, to admit danger, to turn around, to go home, to live. At the beginning, Chen had said that if something went wrong, at least they would have a story. But some stories cost too much. Some stories should never become adventures. They should become warnings. Important warning. Lop Nur is a protected nature reserve. All social groups and individuals are strictly forbidden to enter it for tourism, adventure, or desert crossing. A permit for this kind of crossing cannot be obtained through normal procedures. Entering without permission not only violates local law, but also brings a serious risk of death from extreme heat, dehydration, and getting lost. Lop Nur is not evil. The desert is not cruel in the way people are cruel. It simply is. It is hot. It is empty. It is vast. It is silent. And silence can be deadly when people mistake it for peace. So remember this: when you enter the wild, you are not the hero of the story. The land is, the heat is, the distance is, the silence is. You are only a visitor, and a wise visitor knows when to leave. May every journey begin with courage, but also with respect. Because the desert does not forgive pride, and sometimes turning back is the only way to come home. Thank you for watching and listening to this story on Story Sale English. I hope this story stayed with you, not because it was frightening, but because it was true in a deeper way. In life, many people love the feeling of moving forward. We want to prove ourselves. We want to challenge danger. We want to believe we are strong enough. But strength is not only about going forward. Sometimes real strength is knowing when to stop. Real courage is not ignoring danger. Real courage is respecting it. So before every journey, every decision, and every risk, remember this story. Prepare carefully. Listen to warnings. Respect nature. Respect limits. And never let pride make the decision for you. If this story made you think, please give this video a like. Subscribe to Story Sale English for more powerful stories from history, life, and the human spirit. Leave a comment below. Do you think turning back can sometimes be the bravest choice? If you know someone who loves adventure, or someone who needs to hear this warning, please share this story with them. Maybe this video can remind someone to be more careful. Maybe it can help someone come home safely. Thank you again for being here. Stay curious, stay humble, stay safe. The world is beautiful, but it is not harmless. Goodbye for now, and I hope to see you in the next story.